right, according to my watch, it's 10:02. We have given sufficient time for others to come through. And let me just take this opportunity to truly welcome each and every one of you to our first local government conversations for this year in 2026. And as you know, we've been doing this for the past 5 years, and this then becomes our fifth local government conversations. Truly has been a milestone for those who were part of this from the beginning, knowing how it has grown from when it started to where it is right now, and importantly, the impact that it continues to make in terms of our local government. There are many individuals as I travel and I converse with them, and they speak of these conversations. And I always say, in local government, everyone has something to say. But if you come to this platform, it's not just about talks, but it's constructive talks, and it's something that we truly have proud ourselves with the team over the years. And I truly take my hat off them in that regard. Having said that, local government, most of you are aware, I've been part of, for quite a number of years, and everyone has something to say about local government, and those things are mostly, negative because of the situation that we find ourselves in local government. And that negativity is what is mostly pronounced and coming out, which is very much true. The situation, we all know what it is in our municipalities, but the reality again is dwelling on what is not working doesn't exactly take us forward. The key then becomes us acknowledging the problems that we face, engaging, and importantly, then having meaningful and constructive conversations so that as we come up with solutions and strategies, that is what then can take us forward in terms of making a difference that we all see. And that's the reason for this platform. That's why it was established or created or started by the team, as I've said, 5 years ago. And I'm just glad to say, it has lived up to those expectations. Today, we've got quite a few presenters that have joined us, which I'm just going to mention. But also, let me just acknowledge, our past speakers, presenters, panelists, sponsors, stakeholders that have been part of this conversation. It's something that truly we don't take lightly, and also honor very much for where we are, and importantly, for where we are headed. So for today, without taking much time, let me also just highlight who we have for us today. The first being Miss Alina Motlau, who's representing CIGFARO, who's one of the stakeholders, or partners helping us in these conversations. Thank you very much, Alina. We also have Mr. Attie Butler, the CEO of Ignite Advisory Services, who will be coming through and sharing some of the insights. We've got the CEO of the Institute of Municipal People Practitioners of South Africa, Mr. Trevor Francis, as well as the much known, has been here before as well, Prof. Ndevu. Thank you very much, sir. You always lend a hand, give us your time in these conversations. So thank you so much. And he's the director of the School of Public Leadership at the Stellenbosch University. And also we've got Mr. Mulera, the head of the Secretariat and CEO of the African Professionalisation Initiative. So to our speakers, panel members, thank you very, very much for taking your time to be with us today. Let me also not forget the supporting partners that, as I've said, have been helping us, being with us on this journey that we have undertaken. I've already mentioned CIGFARO. SAQA has been part of these conversations. CMEM has been part of ILGM, and also now being joined by INPSA, the Institute of Municipal Personal Practitioners of Southern Africa. Very, very much grateful for all these supporting partners in this respect. And importantly, these conversations will not be possible if we do not have our sponsors. And these conversations are sponsored by Business Engineering, who have also been a part of this in the past couple of years. So thank you so very much. And also, I don't think it would be good of me not to mention two gentlemen that have truly been walking this path for quite some time when there were challenges of COVID and many other things, but they stuck it out in ensuring that this continues and we are finding ourselves where we are today. And that is Mr. Dan Klassen from the Future Cities Africa, who mostly provides the platform and the technology support to these conversations. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Klassen, for all that you do. You're always in the background and nobody really sees you, but we are aware, most of us, that you are the engine behind all of this. And then also Mr. Zonyane, who is one of the experts in local government, as we bring in other experts within our local government fraternity to be part of these discussions and conversations. Mr. Zonyane, once again, sir, I take my hat off you for the time that you put in here, the effort that goes on behind the scenes as well in ensuring that we can have these conversations. Also to everyone who participates on the chat, when you receive these clips and the videos online, I know that others have been sharing it out as well as we spread the word of making a meaningful and impactful difference in our local government. It is all about improving our municipalities. That's why we do what we do. That's the essence. And that is why we are doing this, so that at the end of it all, we can all realize a good change and a meaningful difference in our municipalities. And ultimately, all of that then translates to better services for our communities out there. With those words, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to this first webinar of our 5th annual Local Government Conversations. I am trusting that it shall once again be very progressive conversations in this regard. Thank you very much. I will now be handing over to our moderator or facilitator for this session, Mr. Zonyane, who will then take us through from this point onwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc, for that wonderful opening, and good morning to all who are joining us this morning as we kick off our first webinar of 2026 within the Local Government Conversations. And we believe this year will even be greater, as Dr. Ngcobo has indicated, that this year it's our 5th anniversary of the Local Government Conversations, and we have walked this road with almost all of you. Today, this year, won't be different. What's the beauty about this year? We've got 16 webinars lined up, and if you've seen our promo, please register for the future webinars. And again, to the audience, we've got our chat box. If you've got any comments, we've got our Q&A option for those questions that must also drive the conversation itself. Ladies and gentlemen, as Doc has said, this is Zolani, and the name is Zonyane, the moderator of this webinar today. Without really wasting time, let me welcome Alina just to take us through some of the CIGFARO membership and benefits. And it's good to share with you that even myself, I'm a member in good standing, a public sector executive. It therefore becomes very important for us to join these professional bodies so that as we talk professionalization even today, it's premised on us contributing to the cause. Alina, let me allow you to come in and welcome.
Saying we SAQA-recognized a professional body for public sector finance, audit, risk, and performance management. Our vision is to be the leading professional body advancing excellence in professionalism, ethical leadership, continuous development, and capacitation of finance and combined assurance practitioners across the public sector. Our mission is to advocate for high ethical standards, conduct through excellence, professionalism, and future-fit financial management and combined assurance expertise among our members in the public sector, all for the benefit of the communities we serve. So why belong? The value of membership, professional recognition. Membership validates your competence and ethical commitment. Recognized designations are public sector executive, professional, technician, and public sector practitioner. Ethics and governance. Strong code of ethics enforced through a disciplinary process. Advocacy and influence. Representation on key policies and input on legislation. So these are the membership benefits: expanded professional development, networking opportunities, advocacy and influence, recognition and rewards, technology and innovation, support services, special member rates, and ethics. These are our membership categories. We have student, affiliate, public sector practitioner, public sector technician, public sector professional, and public sector executive. These are the requirements in order for you to qualify for any of the levels. So we have public sector practitioner. You have to have an NQF level 4 with a minimum of 6 months experience. Public sector technician, it's NQF level 6. With 4 years, of which at least 2 years must have been on junior management or higher level. 5 years at any level in a role related to the position in the public sector. Then we have public sector professional, which requires an NQ level 7, and then minimum of at least 5 years at middle management. And then we have public sector executive, which is NQF level 8. 7 years senior management level in the public sector. Then we have affiliate member who can apply. Any person who is involved in finance, audit, risk management, and performance management matters, but does not have a related qualification. And then we have student membership. The person must be a full-time student, then in the finance, audit, risk management, and or related qualification at a tertiary institution and must not be employed. So we're currently running a 50% off promotion. These are our membership levels and their fees. So for public sector executive, the actual fee is 1,570, but from the 1st of November until 31 March, it's 785. Public sector professional, it's 1,335, but currently it's sector registered member, which is the practitioner, 815, but currently 407. And an affiliate member, 1,400, but currently 700 rands. And a student membership is free for full-time studying students who are not employed. And then we have technical membership packages. So that we have the bronze package, which is for 5 to 10 members. They get a 5% discounted rate on their annual membership fees. Silver package is 11 to 20 members. They get a 10% discount on their annual membership fee, and then 1 free branch event ticket for any member. Gold package is 21 to 50 members. They get a 15% discounted fee, and then they also get 3 free branch event tickets for any member. Diamond package, which is 51 plus members, and then 20% discounted fee for their annual membership fee, and then they get 5 free branch event tickets for any member. Then we have corporate membership fees. We have the bronze package, which is for 5 members. They also get a half-page journal advert or article, logo on our website, attend any event at member rate, invitation to attend international conferences. Terms and conditions apply, and that goes for 20,000. Silver package, it's for 10 members, attend 1 branch event free as a delegate, 1 full-page journal article advertisement, logo on website, attend any event at a member rate, invitation to attend international conferences. Terms and conditions apply, and that goes for 30,000 rand. And then the gold package is for 15 members, and then you get 2 full-page journal or advertisement in the journal for an article or advertisement. Attend 2 branch events for free at delegate fee. And then logo on website, attend any event at a member rate, invitation to attend international conferences. Terms and conditions apply. That goes for 40,000 rands. And then we have the diamond package, which is for 20 members. And then you get 4 full-page journal articles for advertisements, and attend 4 branch events for free as delegates, logo on website and social media platforms, first preference of choosing exhibition space, attend any event at member rate, invitation to attend one international conference, terms and conditions apply, and then banner in monthly newsletter, banner on website, promotional videos on welcome screens and social media platforms that goes for 50,000 rand. And then currently we have our hashtag 5,000 drive. We are on a journey to get 5,000 members by the end of the next financial year, which is 2027. So if you apply now, you will get the 50% discounted rate. How to apply? Simple steps to become a CIGFARO member: complete the application form, apply online, or scan the QR code. Submit required documents, which are certified ID copy, qualifications, CV, and your confirmation letter of employment. For students, they submit their confirmation, their proof of registration from the tertiary institution. Then you pay the membership fees, which I have indicated, but they are also on our website. And then you receive your membership certificate and start accessing exclusive membership benefits immediately. For more information, you can contact us on membership@sigfaro.co.za or cpd@sigfaro.co.za or on our landline, which is 011-394-0879, or visit our website, which is www.sigfaro.co.za. Then thank you, colleagues. And then this is our save the dates for our national events. You can also access them on our website as well, or you can email us and then we'll send them to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Alina. Quite an interesting presentation. And again, as I've indicated, for the benefit of the audience, if we are to professionalize, we are to take this agenda to the next level, it should be one of the prerequisites, and we'll hear from Attie as well, in terms of belonging to a professional body. And the beauty about our webinars, something that also Dan has dropped in the chat, is that our webinars are CPD accredited for attending from 10 to 12. This webinar, you qualify for 2 CPD points, which then if you want to claim, you can always reach out. Alina has shared the email address in her presentation. Without wasting time, Attie, welcome. Thanks for really filling this gap based on your experience within the sector. We believe you will be able to lay the baseline for our conversation today as we really explore, and as we have said even earlier, that through this medium, we always strive to talk solutions than to diagnose the problems. And again, it should be how do we then ensure that we enhance this skills development, capacity development that we talk about, which will ensure impact. Let me allow you to come in, and then we will engage with the other panelists after our presentation, and welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Zolani, much appreciated. It's also a privilege to do the presentation today. I'm quite surprised when I got the request, to do the presentation, and then also I've only realized that I only have 20 minutes to do this presentation. So I'm going to try to talk fast. I'm going to try to say a lot and also be bold in some of the standards that we have from our side in professionalization. So first of all, if you know the company that I work for, Ignite, then you know that we believe that we need to lead by example. And by leading by example, we feel that, we need to be professional in everything that we do. And something similar with local government. And it is not about it. When we think about professionalization, there's a lot of concepts that we can think of. We think about ethics. We think about high standards, we think about consistency and performance management, we talk about efficiency, and then we think about modernization and innovation, reform, local government reform, standardization, training and development, trust. We can think about all of these things, but without professional leadership, local government reform will fail. And unfortunately, as we've seen in some of the instances already, citizens will pay the price for the fail. And Professionalization at this stage, if we look at the next 5 years or even longer, professionalization is not optional. It will and it must be the foundation of institutional survival going forward. Okay. So why does professionalization matter at this stage? Why is it that everybody wants to focus on professionalization? We advocate that we need to focus on it. Let's just share a few statistics with you. First of all, only 41 municipalities achieved clean audits, and I'm going to come back to that just now. There's obviously heightened public scrutiny, the way that we can use social media lately, and the ability of technologies and so on, obviously create a far more heightened public scrutiny than we had in the past. We've seen major service delivery challenges. We lately, water is quite sensitive, and it's not only in certain areas of the country, it's actually throughout the country. Electricity a year or two ago was a major problem. Water spillage, sewage spillage, etc. There's major service delivery challenges that we experience currently. A massive concern for myself currently is limited to no leadership pipeline. Okay. And, if you look at the leadership coming through and where we are involved with the appointment of senior managers, we can see that the pipeline is very small in terms of quality leaderships coming through. And then DCOC introduced Regulation 890, the Municipal Staffing regulations, a year or so ago. And we can see that the enforcement of that is intensifying. And then SAQA also developed the professionalization framework, which currently gains some level of attraction, but obviously there's still a lot of more work to be done from that perspective. So we are not okay because only 16% of our municipalities is okay. Okay. And the rest of the 257 experience some challenges. So clean audits still remain an exception, and obviously is a major concern for us, especially if we look at or think about professionalization. Okay. If we look at employee cost, then we can see that the employee cost pressure, comparing with the threshold of 40%, is concerning because there's quite a lot of municipalities that's far above that threshold. And what's the impact of that? It's not only about the amount of money that we actually spend, but it is about it constrains service delivery investment, which means that service delivery can't be on standard because we're spending way too much on employee costs. Okay. If we look at our employees, then we believe that training does not meet capability requirements. Why? Because we don't do competency assessments. Competency assessments must precede development and must also precede employment. Okay. So, as I've mentioned a bit earlier, if we talk about professionalization, we think wide. We think about we can think about all these other things like ethics and trust and all these type of things. But ultimately, as I've mentioned earlier as well, it's about we need to get our employees to become professionals. And how do we do that? We need to have a professionalization framework that contextualize the whole process in terms of getting our employees professional. Okay, that starts with the institution or institutionalization as a start, which deals with legislative and regulatory framework. It deals with institutional and governance arrangements for councils. It needs to set minimum norms and standards. It needs to create a competency framework and also curriculum development that support that competency framework, which is a major gap currently. And also continuous training and continuous knowledge sharing. Then if we bring that down to the organization, specifically in our instance that we're talking about today is municipalities, then we need to think about proper workforce planning, which should be organized. We should have an organizational development toolkit with specific JDs, and the Regulation 890 to some extent starting to address that, but maybe there's still a bit more work that needs to go into making sure that we've got proper workforce planning. Then the municipalities needs to make sure that there's good quality attraction And then also that our selection procedures are very clear and professional and making sure that we employ the right people. And then once we employ them, we need to make sure that there's very clear, concise, detailed onboarding procedures. Okay. And then ultimately we need to manage those individuals' performance. We need to recognize good quality good quality performance, and then ultimately also making sure that there's career pathing, retention strategies in place, and then career development and support for those individuals that still needs to be developed based on the performance outcomes. Then a bit more on the individual side, we need to define the occupational roles, which we started to do through Regulation 890. We need to determine professional standards, and we only have that in the finance sector, in the engineering sector, and in the legal sector. But with the rest, there's major gaps that needs to be addressed. And then design competency frameworks. And again, Regulation 890 started with that process, and also on the senior management side, there's still a bit of work that happened from that perspective. But DCOC still have a bit more work to finalize that. And then also to determine, some continuous education and training or talent development solutions then. Okay, and then we need to make sure that we've got the right stakeholders aligned and on board, like the professional institutions, the universities, and all other learning institutions as well, to ultimately making sure that we create a professional employee. Okay. So what do we suggest? As Zolani has indicated, we talk about not only about the challenges, but also about solutions. So what are these solutions that we propose? So from our side, first of all, we propose that there need to be competency-based recruitment. There needs to be a very standardized and consistent recruitment processes that all municipalities use, and not currently only certain municipalities like City of Joburg, City of Cape Town, Ekurhuleni. They're starting to use competency-based recruitment processes, but that all municipalities use that, and it's available to all the municipalities. That is accredited assessment batteries in that, to make sure that it is not only a test that comes from the drawer and then we test your competency and we believe you're competent, but there's accredited assessment batteries, which will also create consistency throughout municipalities. Institutionalize the performance management processes far more in detail than Regulation 890 started with, and then there's very clear consequence management to deal with the positives as well as the negatives. We spoke about the ethical tracking system, and I also think that on a national basis, there's discussion from that perspective. And then there's actually coordination of all the capacity initiatives through dashboards and some level of monitoring to make sure that all these capacity building efforts are aligned and up to standard. And then ultimately, and I'm going to come back to that towards the end, professional accreditation, which I believe is critically important to make sure that we create a professional environment within the local government space. Okay, so let's quickly talk about one or two business cases based on our experience where we involve in this professionalization processes. First of all, one of the municipalities introduced a mandatory competency assessment battery and a whole system, linked to that before appointments. And the results that came out of that, there was a 30% reduction in senior management turnover. There was a decline in disciplinary matters, which was quite interesting for me. And you can also see within this particular municipality, if you look at the number of municipal disciplinary cases that they had in comparison to what we have now, but also the type of disciplinary matters that they deal with is a bit different based on, making sure that they employ competent people. The audit outcomes have improved during the past 2 years, within the 2-year period after they started to introduce that, and performance contracts were also aligned to the SDBIP and therefore improved service delivery. The second municipality that I would like to mention is a municipality that introduced disciplinary tracking and various performance dashboards. And through that process, the results that they've achieved within 2 years was that 40% reduction in unresolved disciplinary cases, faster service delivery turnaround times was achieved, And also this is not only internally, but also feedback from their community, improve monitoring and evaluation. And they've focused quite a lot on M&E, monitoring and evaluation. And what they've also done in this municipality, almost everything that what they do or what they decide needs to be implemented. All resolutions are M&E'd, and then on a weekly basis, they monitor all the M&E elements and all the matters. And then people is accountable for if they don't address the M&E matters the way that they should do. What was quite interesting in this instance as well is the public confidence that has improved in this particular municipality. Okay, so the 5 actions to accelerate professionalization, I just want to maybe highlight 1 or 2 in a bit more detail. And then first of all, I think ethics cannot be treated as a standalone and just as a compliant appendix. SALGA's framework emphasizes on the ethical conduct for councillors in particular. Regulation 890 emphasizes on the ethical competence for officials. But our implementation experience showed that if ethics is not institutionalized through monitoring, disciplinary systems, transparent reporting, performance-linked consequences, then professionalization remains theoretical. Okay, professional conduct must be linked to audit outcomes, financial sustainability, service delivery reliability, citizen confidence, and ethics must be measured, definitely. Okay. So then, if we talk about then the competency assessments in a bit more detail, we need to enforce minimum standards through competency-based recruitment and accreditation. We need to make sure that CPD systems are monitored annually, and that is again where I believe that we need to professionalize the whole government system and also government employees. And succession planning, we must have a very clear succession planning pipeline. When we talk about monitoring and evaluation, then or mentoring of leadership development, then professionalization growth is only through coaching, peer networks, communities of practice, and cross-municipal secondments. Okay, we need to create those knowledge networks so that we can have a national capacity building and coordination forum that provides for quarterly coordination, shared dashboards, case study exchange, real-time monitoring, and SALGA can also from their side amplify this platform sector-wide, through the councillors and through their systems. Okay, so I think those type of things are quite important, and we need to focus a lot on our talent. Okay, because as I've mentioned earlier, if we don't have professional employees, then professionalization goes out the window. Okay, so through this talent infrastructure, we need to have a complete talent management process, proper workforce planning, making sure that we have a maturity assessment model so that we can use our current employees and develop them in terms of the gap in competencies, but also in terms of new employees that we take on, that we onboard, that they are competent in terms of what they need to do, and then that there's proper governance to monitor this process in detail, and then ultimately that there's learning and development on a continuous basis. Okay, so just want to talk specifically about professionalization of individuals. Okay, so we believe that you can't have a professional, there's no accreditation process in place. Let's, for example, doctors. They get accredited and they write an exam. They go through a very detailed practical experience, and only after that they become a doctor. The same with chartered accountants. The same with qualified engineers. So why don't we do exactly the same with our municipal staff? So we've developed what we call the Municipal Professionalization Model, the MPM, where we say we need to start off with have a very clear competency framework. We've got that in place already for senior managers. For municipal staff, we almost there with Regulation 890, and we are very clear in terms of what skills will be required, knowledge requirements and capability requirements to employ employees in specific positions. Okay, but then we need to create this accreditation model per job function so that we can then clarify and confirm minimum experience, minimum qualification, and we have a proper internship program so that people can go through that process with accreditation standards before they then get recognized as a professional accredited local government technician or manager. Okay, and in this process, we believe that DCOC should, or the minister perhaps even, must appoint a accreditation board to make sure that there's proper standard and that the accreditation standards are monitored and then the process are properly followed. Similar again, like chartered accountants, the medical practitioners, etc. Okay, and then through this process, we can do a proper skills assessment, which include competency assessment, qualifications, experience, skills and competency gap analysis, and then ultimately get the individuals accredited, and then thereafter they need to be a proper CPD system so that people on an annual basis can stay specialists in the areas of concern. So just to close off then, what are we saying? We need to say, or what I'm trying to say is that how far did we progress? We've got frameworks already in place, okay? We haven't even started to enforce them yet, okay? Where are the blockages? I think the blockages might be monitoring gaps, might be capacity constraints, can be the political dynamics that we currently experience, especially with the elections coming up towards the end of the year, and then fragmented training. So how can we accelerate this, and how can we get the impact ultimately? So enforce the competency-based recruitment on a national basis, integrate SALGA's political leadership framework with administrative reform, institutionalize CPD for councillors and officials, establish national disciplinary tracking, build formal mentorship networks across provinces, and establish a board focusing on accreditation in particular. Okay. And with that, I believe it is achieved when appointments are merit-based, ethics is lived daily, performance is measurable, learning is continuous, accountability is predictable. And the convergence of that will be DCOC leadership, SALGA, advocacy, AGA as oversight, CETA, which creates the alignment, and then professional bodies like IMSA and CIGFARO and others that can create an ecosystem required for impact. If we align capacity development, partnerships, and knowledge networks, then professionalization becomes sustainable. If we do not, it remains policy intent. So the next 5 years is going to be critical to make sure that this happens. And with that, thank you.
Thanks for that, Attie. That's much appreciated. And it begins to outline again what is it that must be done. I often say, linking to the presentation, that one of the things that we need beyond just local government, we need managers who manage. And as we transition to Trevor, linking to Attie's presentation, there's an interesting work that IMSA is doing. And again, as you touch on it, I believe it will also begin to enhance the input that has come from Attie, specifically on collaborations, partnerships, but beyond that, I will say how as a sector, as various institutions, we begin to work closely together in implementing the frameworks that are already available. As we do that, Attie, there's already a question from Terence that came through, but I believe Prof. Ndevu will be touching on that as well, together as Evans. But you can look at that question and many others that will be coming. Ladies and gents, keep the questions coming. At some point, we are 154 of us. Therefore, it means we can have a greater engagement. Trevor, welcome, and thanks for gracing us this morning. You are still on mute.
I think, sorry, can you hear me now, Zolani?
Yes, loud and clear.
Well, yeah, firstly, thank you very, very much to Future Cities Africa, Dan, and thank you to Municipal Edge Zolani for giving us the opportunity and giving me the opportunity to engage on this platform. Starting point, I think I'm going to try and contextualize the professionalization framework and the work that has been done so far in terms of professionalization. And then the second thing that I want to do is talk about where IMSA is, who IMSA is, and where we are in terms of getting professionalization off the ground. I think, Zolani, I'm going to start with contextualizing the role that IMSA plays in all of this. Our mission, obviously, is the promotion of the interest of our members and the development of professional knowledge and skills.
Yes, we can see you. You can continue.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Zolani, I think the promotion of the interest of our members and the development of professional knowledge and skills is probably the key reason why we function in the sector and what we do. I want to very, very quickly summarize or contextualize professionalization in South Africa, especially in local government. This is not a new topic. It's not something that's hitting the headlines only now. This goes back probably 13 years. In 2013, SAGA and COCTA developed the local government professionalization framework. And when they developed this framework, they focused on addressing organizational capacity challenges. Now, the problems that triggered the call for professionalization of local government were two things. Firstly, it was the AG's adverse findings. And then secondly, it was service delivery protests. That has not changed. So from 2013 to now, COCTA then introduced the National Capacity Building Framework for 2016 to 2021. And in terms of that National Capacity Building Framework, they probably focused on three aspects. And those three aspects have not changed because one, for them to achieve and for us to achieve professionalization of the sector, there has to be three core aspects which we should focus on. One would be an enabling environment. The second one would be institutional capacity. And the third one would be individual capacity. Now, this is where IMSA comes into play in terms of it being a sweet spot for the institute to utilize all the resources it has. But more importantly, we have been focusing on establishing stakeholder engagements and relationships that can turn the tide. And for IMSA, it's about turning the tide. So the first thing that we did was repivot ourselves, reposition ourselves, because the needs and the times require innovation. So in 2024, we embarked on a new path in terms of our vision. And on the 12th of May, 2025, we entered into an MOU with COCTA. And the MOU with COCTA was a very engagement. One, or in a nutshell, it was to collaborate and partner in growing skills and capabilities within the public service, to professionalize HR development, and to promote ethical leadership in upholding human rights. Now, in establishing or entering into that MOU, it was a commitment from our side and a commitment from COCTA to continue this journey and probably create some kind of traction in terms of professionalizing the sector. During the course of last year, there were several engagements with COCTA. And one of the things that IMSA is very, very clear on is its ability to strike strategic partnerships that can actually make things happen, because we're in the game of making things happen. And I think in terms of making things happen, it's also about having the professional will to make professionalization happen. So in terms of that, we see COCTA as the custodian of the legislative framework. And in terms of there being the custodian of the legislative framework, we engaged in various forums last year to try and see where we could make an impact and where we could engage key stakeholders like yourselves and people on this panel. I think the white paper on local government, or the review of the white paper on local government, the local government in Daba, and then collaboration at last year's conference in particular, highlighted the minister's commitment, the Minister of COCTA's commitment to ensuring that professionalization happens in local government. And I think in November last year, the minister was very, very clear when he indicated that professionalization is not a tick box exercise. He was very clear in terms of it's a foundation for capable, ethical, and future-ready local government. Now, in doing that, the point that I want to get to in terms of my presentation is there were 4 key things that came out of that conference that probably summarizes or positions IMSA, COCTA, and its strategic partners like Ignite, my colleague earlier on, and yourselves as ILGM, Future City Network, all partners that are collaborating in this particular sector. I think in terms of reinforcing commitment towards the professionalization of local government, IMSA and COCTA entered or resolved the following. 1, we said that there has to be an unwavering commitment to professional integrity. My colleague Attie alluded to integrity, but in terms of the resolution, in terms of our commitment, we indicated that IMSA reaffirms its commitment to ethical leadership and institutional excellence. And we are saying that those are non-negotiable for transformative local government. The second thing that we were very, very clear on, and I think that COCTA is also part and parcel on the partnership of ensuring that both political and administrative leaders must champion professional standards. In other words, the principle that should be guiding professionalization going forward, especially in municipalities, is all appointments should be made on merit and not patronage. And to get to that particular point means that whilst we have the legislative framework, we will also require political will and engagement from councillors who serve a massive part of the governance structure of South Africa. I think the third one was competence over compliance. And here it means that every staff member should be equipped with the right skills, the right values, and that institutions are led by ethical, competent officials. And I think the last thing was that IMSA will drive innovation, continuous learning, and mobile communities to achieve shared goals. Now, during the course of my presentation, you would have thought that I was marketing IMSA and only talking about IMSA. The fact of the matter is the important ingredients to make professionalization work is a commitment from institutions like CIGFARO, like IMSA, like ILGM. And when I speak about what IMSA is committed to, I have no doubt that all the other institutions, all other public service organizations have a vested interest and a similar commitment to making sure that this sector becomes professionalized only for or in the interest of ensuring that we get or develop a better quality of life for people. But at the same time, we want to ensure that we align ourselves to a level of competency, a level of commitment, a level of ethics that causes us to be professional. And in summary, to be professional is all about how you show up. And if you show up in a way, Zolani, that exudes a great work ethics, talks about adhering to standards, talks about professional or specific work disciplines, then I think we are on the right track. Thank you very, very much, Zolani. I am done.
No, thanks a lot for that input, Francis. And again, having invited IMSA specifically from the people's management perspective, it also becomes, as you talk about institutions, how do then your human resources management, as an example, come into the space and play a key role in ensuring that we achieve this professionalization agenda. Prof. Ndevu, let me welcome you. And again, you are not new to this platform, neither to the conversation itself. And again, it's about more the role of the academic or academia and academic institutions in this professionalization agenda. And as I've indicated, you might have noted the question from Terence. But again, when we had this conversation in 2024, we did focus on the curriculum itself as one of the areas that need attention. Let me welcome you and allow you to come in. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you very much, Zolani. Good morning to you and good morning to all the colleagues, especially my panelists and everyone that has joined online. Indeed, I have noted the question online around the role of higher education institutions, general or post-education sector, generally. Perhaps I will start by concurring with my colleagues that have presented before me that this particular initiative of ensuring that local government is professionalized, it is an agent initiative that we need to take in order for us to resolve the current challenges that they have articulated so well around local government. The universities are supposed to be centers of excellence, are supposed to be institutions that provide that are primary agencies of development. And they can only do that if they understand what is the need within society itself, what are the kind of skills that are required in order for us to ensure that our institutions are professionalized. There are three things that one would look at when you talk about professionalization of local government. It is specifically institutions that they conduct their business, they act in a professional manner. It is processes that would be in such a way that exhibit characteristics of a professional institution. Then you have got the third leg, which is your personnel within those institutions. Universities can play a role in all three of them, but for today's session, I will focus mainly on the personnel that is important for institutions as centers of knowledge providers, or as institutions that are there to ensure that they provide knowledge, either upskilling, either ensuring that there's a pipeline in responding to that question that was asked earlier on. It is important that institutions of higher learning generally understand what is required at local government level, what kind of institutions we require, what kind of personnel we require. Then that will ensure that the institutions are able to help local government in realizing these challenges. One of the things that they would need to then do is to ensure that there is partnership with institutions like these that are here represented here, which are like-minded institutions that wants to make an intervention in the space of local government to ensure that there's co-creation of knowledge, because we need to ensure that there is some form of co-creation of knowledge using expertise and practice and theoretical framework to combine those to ensure that we're able to come up with programs, with capacity building initiatives that would make an intervention. And this will require multiple stakeholders to get involved, universities with accredited programs or programs that would lead to formal qualifications. You would also have entities that might need to certify these individuals as professionally competent to be able to do their jobs. So you have to address all of those in ensuring that you start this point. And I think the focus would be mainly, there are a number of other points that colleagues have looked at, but for me, as a starting point, the issue of strategic leadership, the issue of professionalization of the leadership, the core leadership of any local institution is important. Then you also look at your financial aspects. You look at things like your processes. You then look at things such as the delivery of services. And you can do this by ensuring that there is quality assurance, which universities can do, because the programs that they offer are accredited programs, are programs that are not only approved by one structure, but a number of structures to ensure that there is quality assurance. You would, for example, have them being approved by QCTO, CHEN, and so all sorts of other entities that would look at that. This capacity building initiative to ensure that local government is professionalized would also have to talk at things like innovation. How do we deal with the current core that we have at local government level of personnel? How do we ensure that we get them to a level where they act and behave and undertake their responsibilities in a professional manner. It would require us to have short-term intervention, to also think about long-term, medium-term interventions and long-term interventions. Partly those would include things such as developing curriculum that is fit for purpose, curriculum that would look at the current programs that we have at local government and how we adapt institutionally, and also these programs that we would then have to introduce. They should be evidence-based. They should be informed by research that is rigor, research that is authoritative, that talks to what could work and what could not work, and how do we adapt in instances where things cannot work. Then you would have a standardization of interventions. So it doesn't have to be only the University of Stellenbosch, but other providers within the sector, the post-schooling sector that can be able to intervene in instances like this, looking at the needs that might be there at a local government specifically. Your program should be aligned to either the institution's curriculum or the other entities that would be making interventions. And they should be skills that are central to what local government's purpose is. So they should be central to that. And we think that one of the critical things is that even the short intervention should be aligned to formal programs, to NQF related programs. So we know that traditional articulation, where a person gets an undergraduate qualification, he moves to a postgraduate qualification, and so forth until NQF level 10. But we should also allow these short learning or these short-term interventions to be able to articulate diagonally to these formal qualifications. So it might be building up towards a particular formal qualification, working with institutions such as the National School of Government, the SALGA Learning Hub, and so forth to ensure that the short-term interventions that we bring in to help local government to be professionalized also help to upskill personnel within local government to be able to do what is expected of them, those that are currently in the system and those that are in the pipeline are then equipped to be ready to take up that space with the kind of programs that we would have to do. I think even the curriculum level, where we develop curriculum, we would have to engage with stakeholders such as these ones. For example, Attie, in his presentation, he emphasized the issue of competencies. The competency framework, we have that for senior management, but we would have to look at other areas within other levels within local government and ensure that we have competency frameworks for different levels. And our curriculum, our programs, our interventions are aligned with these. So people can bank programs as they go along, as they climb the ladder in terms of the system at local government. They are able to bank some of these as they go up. So we would have to ensure that we create space that allows for that, to allow for these. We also have to ensure that the issue of specialization at local government, it is at the center of the interventions that we do. Gone are days where we look at generalization in terms of the kind of skills that are required. When we talk about finances, for example, it should be specifically related to finances as local government and how a practitioner should be able to conduct his or her responsibility in that space with the kind of skills that the person would be equipped with. Policy understanding would also be important to enhance the ability of these stakeholders to be able to do what is expected of them. We would also have to ensure that as we do that, we create a pool of local government practitioners that are competent, that are capable, that also exhibit the ethical skills or characteristics that my colleagues have talked about. And this is a different pipeline of graduates that universities should then produce. I see that you're already there, so it means my time is up. Thank you so much. I can always come back with your questions.
Yes, no, thanks a lot for that, Prof. It's always great to listen specifically from, I'll say, the side of academia, because as professionals and as experts, we go through the system but at the same time would not often allow space for people like you to actually share the insights as you have shared. That is much appreciated. Let me welcome Evans, and Evans will be linking, I believe, Prof, to some of the inputs you've made, specifically around the role of the academic institutions. But Evans runs the African Professionalization Initiative, which we then said it's important to learn and understand what's happening throughout the continent, but more so, API is also involved in some work within the country, which Evans will also touch base on. Welcome, Evans. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zolani, for the warm introduction. And I'm also grateful to the panelists as well as the delegates who turned up today. Thank you so much for according us this opportunity. I was very excited the first time when I got the invitation to take part in this event because I didn't know there was an initiative called Future Cities Africa. And this really, I would say, a current but also futuristic initiative. I love the mention of African cities because it shows that this initiative is not just about South Africa. This is an initiative that it appears aims to help all African cities realize quality capacity within the people working for municipalities particularly, and enabling those people then to realize quality delivery of services and productivity, aligning with ethics, as I saw in the introductory remarks that were made this morning, as well as by each and every speaker that has been talking. The Professor Ndevu, who just spoke now, talked about the need for all of us to partner. And actually, API, the African Professionalization Initiative, is purely about partnerships. And you'll find that just because I'll be summarizing very quickly what we've been doing across the African continent, and our work in the African continent in professionalization is something that I think should provide an opportunity for maybe API and Future Cities Africa to look at how now the vision and mission of Future Cities Africa can extend beyond South Africa so that we can accelerate realization of your impact across the continent, of course, using the lessons that we have picked working in South Africa. So API, in summary, is a partnership that was founded by 4 organizations. It was founded by AfroSAI. AfroSAI is the African Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions from English-speaking countries. They actually host API, and AfroSAI is based at the Auditor General of South Africa offices in Linwood, Pretoria. The other organization in this partnership is the Pan-African Federation of Accountants that brings together professional accountancy organizations across Africa. The third organization is the CREFIAF, which is the Auditors General grouping from French-speaking countries. And then finally, we have the African Association of Accountants General. And as you know, Accountants General prepare financial statements that are presented for audit by the government auditor. And so they all came together and recognized the need to professionalize government accountants and auditors, as well as non-finance officers, to address a gap that exists. There's a significant gap. I'll just tell you now that we collected some information from some countries. And some of those countries, actually, we found that the reports they gave us themselves, because they had done surveys, showed that you find that the holders of accounting, auditing, and other public finance, budget responsibilities, those people, 95% of them are not professionalized. Only 5% or thereabout are professionalized. If you read what I've just said to you now, it tells you that actually we are putting at risk the public resources in 95% of those people who do not align to professional standards. And I really liked what was said earlier on. I don't know if it was Attie or I'm not sure who said this, that this professionalization actually needs to run across the different disciplines. I attended an event a year ago, and the delegates asked me, why are you only professionalizing accountants and auditors? There are people working in public sector in government who are not necessarily accountants or auditors, but they also need professionalization. I think this is a challenge for us here in this forum, Future Cities Africa. Zolani and your group, IMSA, CIGFARO, to address these issues, but I see the intention is to do exactly that. So I would like to just go on and maybe give you just a quick summary of what we are trying to achieve through professionalization. In summary, when I read the guidance for today's webinar, actually we are almost doing the same thing, because for us, our vision is to realize an African public sector capacitated with competent, ethical, and influential professionals who support accountability, transparency, and good governance. And I've seen most of these keywords mentioned in the description of what we are achieving in today's webinar, which told me that actually we are pulling all of us here in a common same direction. Now, I want to thank the stakeholders of API in South Africa very much. And I want to start so by congratulating CIGFARO for sponsoring this event. I listened to the remarks and the initiatives by CIGFARO. I'm totally inspired. And I'm hoping that going forward, perhaps we can see how to actually hold each other's hands, of course, together with all the institutions here, IMSA and the rest, to see how we move professionalization forward. I want to just give you a quick update before I hand back to Zolani of what we are doing in South Africa. So South Africa is one of the 12 countries. Over the last 2 years, we've signed MOUs with 12 countries to professionalize the public sector. And in South Africa, in our MOU, we are working with a number of institutions. We are working with PAOs. We have SAIGA, the Institute for Government Auditors. We are also working with SAICA, the Institute for Chartered Accountants. But also in the recent days, we've received engagements and requests from SAIPA. But above that, we are also engaging with our friends within municipalities. Like we've been engaging with the Western Cape, the province in South Africa, which I believe is a municipality. But our hope is that through the partners within this forum, we move forward professionalization, working with Future Cities Africa, as well as all the stakeholders gathered here today. Now, to just let you know that the Accounting Standards Board of South Africa, ASB, through leadership of their CEO, Zonyane, we've been holding meetings. Our more recent meeting was on 27th of January, where we gathered academic institutions, universities that have indicated they are interested in advancing professionalization. You can see professionalization is something that has really gained momentum, particularly in South Africa. And in that meeting, it was agreed that we need to partner such that when we are driving professionalization, we give those who are being professionalized choice. So if they are from municipalities and they would like to professionalize through the tuition institution or academy at CIGFARO, they are able to do so. If they want to do through the University of Pretoria, University of Cape Town, UNISA, University of Joburg, or any institution, they can do so. But all of us are working as partners, ensuring that actually we are investing in quality to give choice to staff, both in the municipalities, local government, as well as at the national government. One thing I want to close with is that the leadership in South Africa, the public sector, we sat down last October and more recently, I think in January, with the Accountant General of South Africa, and he indicated that he really needs the officials within the Ministry of Finance and National Treasury to be professionalized. And this is a conversation now that, API cannot take this on alone. And that's why we have been speaking with all those universities I mentioned, as well as the accountants organization. I would like to welcome our partners here today to this conversation, so that as we go forward together, when government says that we want to professionalize at both the local, municipal, and the national government, we have, institutions that are forward-looking, like those present here, in the front of the queue in driving professionalization, as has been witnessed today. So, Zolani, let me stop there. I have a lot more to share about what API is doing in professionalization, but I'll close here and just say that we had our first set of graduates last year. We'll have another graduation this year with the public sector designation, and we would like to partner with everyone present here to realize this mission. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks a lot for that, Evans. And again, as you are making the closing, it enhances our belief that if we are to achieve anything within the public service, collaborations, partnerships, and knowledge exchange, most importantly, becomes quite important cornerstones. We are grateful that we have you, and also extending to other partners to join you in the work that you are doing. As I'm going to reflect back to Attie, as we get to, I'll say, the core of the conversation itself. There's a question that came from Maxwell in the comments in terms of we've got all these institutes and associations as to whether one must be a member for each of them. It can't be right, Maxwell. What we seek to achieve, firstly, by professionalization broadly, is to ensure that you belong. That's number one. And the reason for belonging, it's the accountability. Because if we make, for an example, your South African Institute of Chartered Accountants as one, where, for an example, if for one reason or the other, either because of competency, the wrongdoing, you are being found to have broken the code, even your certification gets revoked. That also makes it difficult now to even get to other opportunities. And as part of the conversations is also to ensure that as we professionalize, as we ensure that almost all those in public service, and it goes beyond just the officials, because even some of the councillors, it's a conversation that they are raising, that if your certification gets revoked, even getting to other opportunities in future, it then becomes difficult. And again, as a professional, before any act, you must think about the future together with its implications. But what is important is that belonging, it doesn't have to be all the institutes or associations, because whichever you belong to, that accountability will be there. Broadly, there might be industry-specific requirements for you to belong to a specific body that then goes beyond the public service itself. Attie, I want to bring you in because you raised quite a very important aspect, which is, again, something that will be happening. Competency-based appointments, which is something that you are also spearheading, but having appointed, my observation, and it's something that will also reflect in the issue of performance management systems in our institutions, specifically municipalities, which will then also assist, because capacity development or capacity building, it's not a once-off exercise. It's more or less a daily thing that should be happening. But without a strong performance management system that is appreciated by everyone in the value chain, perhaps we still have a problem there. How do we resolve that issue specifically at municipal level?
Thank you, Zolani, and yeah, I maybe on next time we can unpack of the suggestions that I've made in a lot more detail. But first of all, let's just start with competency assessments in particular. Okay, so competency assessments is not, in terms of our current experience, a type of a test that's lying around somewhere in somebody's office for a specific position, and then you write that test, and then if you pass that test, then you believe that person is competent. Okay. Competency assessments have a lot more detail, built into it. And I think the effort that was made in terms of all levels of government or all levels of individuals in local government currently, The competencies has been designed with a lot of thought leadership, and there was a lot of effort built into that. So by that, I'm not saying that competency assessments are perfect or competencies that has been designed is perfect. There's obviously work as we go through and implement competency-based employment and competency-based performance evaluation, then we still realize that there's a few gaps that we can extend. But as it is with everything, you need to start somewhere, and as you then go through the process, you can build on that. Okay. So I think that's the first point. So what is it that we need to do as to making sure that we employ people with the right competency? Then we need to have standardized competency assessments throughout the country. Okay. And there is a framework, there is a model we already use for senior managers. We can just adopt that model and revamp it, to include the rest as well. What we have done, we have, for example, developed an online assessment tool that can assess the competencies from a technical perspective. And then we just need to include the behavioral aspects of that as well, and then you'll have a complete competency assessment. Coming back to performance evaluations, okay. I think where we are currently with performance monitoring within the municipalities, then I would say there's about maybe 40% or so of municipalities that understand performance assessments on organizational level, but very little on the individual level. And in a lot of instances, and I would put my head out to say maybe about 80% of municipalities on individual level are doing it as a compliance exercise and not to making sure that we professionalize through consequence management. And consequence management does not mean, disciplinary processes. It also means that we recognize good performance, but that we're making sure that we develop the gaps that we have. So where is the problem? The problem sits with the managers that needs to be properly trained so that they can understand what it is when they assess performance, how to prepare themselves, how to properly assess performance, making sure that they understand the particular role of that individual and assessing the competencies in terms of that particular role. So I think once we get that right, we're going to be quite far down the line, and then we're going to reap the benefits out of it, and also making sure that we've got a more professional workforce. Then coming back to your point that you have made with regards to accreditation and then also recognizing other qualifications and et cetera, or other accreditations from other bodies. Okay. So what we have done with, and I work quite close with IMSA, on this, we have designed a model where we say we need to get an accreditation model for all municipal staff ultimately. But, there's quite a few organizations that have already accredited models, like, for example, engineers. Okay. So the model that we have designed recognizes those as long as the accreditation has been achieved through proper work experience together with an level of examination, which is of a specific standard. So if that's the case, then the accreditation or the recognition of those accreditations will form part of the process. But that is then where the partners comes in with working very closely with other professional organizations and also with the universities and so on to make sure that there's a specific standard. Otherwise, we're going to have something like some of the other training which is not going to be up to standard, and then professionalization will not be where we want it to be.
No, thanks a lot for that, Attie. Those inputs and contributions really go a very long way. I want to bring you in, Trevor, because you've mentioned the framework that has been guiding specifically the work that SALGA and COGTA has been doing. But beyond that, we've got the work that is done by the Public Service Commission, for an example, in terms of the professionalization agenda. As part and parcel of the stakeholders that you are currently working with, is there a convergence between these frameworks? Because one of the bottlenecks, that's my observation, is that we develop these frameworks, we then fight within the space in terms of implementation. Whether the Public Service Commission is part of those conversations, but beyond that, it's also a question that came through the registrations. Within the municipalities now, are that departments? Because in terms of the Institute for Municipal People Practitioners of Southern Africa, as I've indicated, it's more the human resources management. In terms of that function, throwing in all the other departments, supporting them in terms of ensuring that as we professionalize, there is also a central point within municipalities. What has been your experience around that?
Thank you very much, Zolani. I think you've hit the nail on the head, because if we do not get parties to collaborate, especially in a single drive, then this is not going to gain the momentum we want. There is collaboration between SALGA, between the Public Service Commission, between COCTA, and IMSA is only probably one part of a bigger picture. In terms of designing an implementation plan, our discussions with COCTA have gone to the point where there is a clear implementation plan on the table. The challenge with local government is that we would like to roll this implementation plan out because there are so many matters that need to be attended to from a professionalization space. However, our challenge is funding. So from that perspective, Zolani, we have brought in two key parties that can assist in a rollout of an implementation plan. One of them is the local government SETA, who are on board in terms of ensuring that there are enough discretionary funding, discretionary funding opportunities available, special projects. We've applied for all of that with an endorsement from COCTA. But I think answering your question directly, is there consensus? Is there a clear line in terms of parties that have a vested interest in the professionalization of the sector? There is. SALGA is on board, COCTA is on board, other institutes are on board, IOGM is on board. Everybody is speaking the same language. I think the time is right. The environment is well enabled. It's just a question of making sure everybody comes to the party in terms of delivering. I think many of the things that Attie has alluded to in terms of competency, in terms of accreditation, in terms of also embarking on a local government accreditation agency is part of the many discussions we're having with COCTA. And one of the reasons why we're having the discussions with COCTA and why we are engaging at that level is that in local government, because we know that local government is a creature of statute, you have to go through the bureaucracy, but you don't have to become part of that bureaucracy. And I think from our perspective, we do not want to become part of the bureaucracy. We want to be a catalyst in the process. And in terms of that collaboration, we have placed before our partners in front of SALGA, in front of COCTA, a very, very clear implementation plan that has been a joint effort between Ignite and IMSA. So I hope I've answered your question, Zolani. But I think in a nutshell, there is enough commitment from the key stakeholders and institutes and partners. There's enough commitment for us to gain the momentum that we need to gain post the white paper.
Thanks a lot for those inputs, Trevor. And again, it will need all of us in this particular webinar, not only the panelists, we've got the audience. As part of looking at the implementation plan itself, we become part and parcel of the process. And one way that we can contribute, all of us, is ensure that if the plan is out, we play our role in monitoring the implementation of the plan itself to ensure that at some point, we then take stock, we look back, and then we pave the way forward. But thanks for those inputs, Trevor. Prof, as I get to you, and I want to touch on capacity development itself. which there have been conversations, there are calls to say we also need to rethink how we deliver capacity development. Yes, that goes beyond the institutions of higher learning, but then it links back to the question on curriculum itself. One of the things I normally put forth is the way we take officials from institutions, we take them, for an example, for a week to actually say we are developing their capacity. From your perspective, is there really a room and a scope to actually come up with, I'll say, new and fresh models? You can still have, for an example, the content for those 5 days, but to spread those 5 days over time, also ensuring that where possible, the capacity development initiatives themselves do link to the processes as they unfold at the ground. What's your take on that view?
Zolani, there is sufficient evidence in literature that if you want to develop an intervention that would make a meaningful impact or would add value, it must be an intervention that talks to current realities within any institution that you are making intervention in, and looking at what would be the desired situation. And you can only do that if you understand what is happening in that space. So co-creation of curriculum is important between practitioners and also higher education institution. So it's no longer valid to only argue that universities or higher education institutional or the post-schooling sector only would be able to come up with interventions that would solve some of the problems we're experiencing in our spaces, more especially in local government, that pertains to capacity. So bringing 5 people for 5 days at an intervention session, but it doesn't talk to practical realities, that would not help with ensuring that there is capacity. So if we talk about evaluation of the competencies of those who attend those programs over whatever period that you have set aside, it must talk to solving real problems in the workplace, being able to adapt and implement whatever you have learned in that capacity immediately when you move back to your desk. So if we can do that, then our capacity building would be impactful. But if we don't do that, we'll find that our capacity building is not impactful and therefore does not add value. So it must be capacity building that would add value. And I do think that there is definitely a role for all stakeholders to play in ensuring that we shape the curriculum in such a way that is relevant, talks to current realities that we see, but is embedded on a good foundational theory, because that's also very important to ensure that that curriculum is embedded in good foundational theory. For you to be able to do that, your assessments could then be real issues, solving real problems, rather than what we have done previously, or what used to be done previously, where you solve case studies that are sometimes artificial, sometimes are no longer even existing in reality. So you would need to bring that in place. Maybe just to add as well, I think the issue of the revolving door that we've always been talking about between municipalities, public institutions, and also institutions of learning, that's also important to ensure that there is exposure into reality, into practice for those that are in academia, and there is exposure for those that are in practice on what are the embedded principles that apply in the other space.
No, thanks a lot for that, Prof. And again, your input re-emphasizes what has been coming through this conversation, the issue of partnerships and collaborations. Because indeed, it's that time that we move away from being perfect in what we do, but in silos. And any system, you can be perfect, do everything that needs to be done, but if other areas are not functioning, that system won't function. Thanks for those inputs. There's a question that came, Evans, and again, I'm bringing that to you, not that it has not been attended to. But the thing is, it mentions a specific context in Somalia of how does the country, because it's specific to the context of Somalia, move beyond workshops to build professional local governments with right people. And again, I believe throughout the continent, based on the work you do through the API, those are the areas that you also look at. But then beyond that, in terms of the wider reach, in terms of the institutes, the associations that you work with, whether API is also open for some who may reach out in terms of strengthening these partnerships and collaborations. Over to Evans.
Yeah, Zolani, thank you so much for the question. So very quickly, I'm glad you started by mentioning Somalia. We are engaging in Somalia. Actually, we have an active project in Somalia with PAFA and Africa Development Bank that is ongoing. But also prior to that, in the last 2-3 years, we've been engaging with the Auditor General of Somalia and Accountant General, as well as the Institute, SIGFARO, the Somali Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which is working closely with the other institutes to strengthen before they can drive professionalization. But coming to your fundamental question around partnership, actually, partnering is the lifeblood of API. It never really occurred to me very clearly initially, but as we go forward, I realized that's what actually is happening. My answer to your question is yes. Yesterday, we received a call from a South African institution that does risk. They develop tools for risk management and assessment. And they were asking us, can you look at how we can partner so that we can embed this as an add-on in terms of value addition to the professionalization of accountants and auditors? And our answer was, let's have a meeting and look at this. Potentially, this may work. It's for the same reason I was in my earlier remarks saying that organizations such as CIGFARO, who are present here today, IMSA, and all the others, we need to look at what you're doing and identify where are the areas of complementarity, so that we can work together. So if you allow me, Zolani, let me tell you a recent story in South Africa, where we were approached by, there's an institution called, I think, the Fraud Examiners, ACFI or something, and they have a college that handles training on certified fraud examiners. So they were asking us, is there room to partner? So we told them that, look, as we have no expertise in that area, we believe across Africa in government, there are people who may be interested in that product, but API doesn't offer that. So we're happy to discuss something to collaborate. I saw what CIGFARO does, and I'm really interested, Alina, to have a conversation with you, plus all the other institutions present here. And so this is a big yes, Zolani, because remember I mentioned earlier the many institutions we are working with in South Africa. Because if we don't work with these institutions, first of all, we will not succeed in South Africa. Second of all, we will not succeed across the African continent. Partnerships are not an option. They are the only way. Thank you, and back to you.
No, thanks a lot for that, Evans. And as we edge closer to our closing, and I'll be giving each of our panelists just closing remarks and reflections. One thing that is a golden thread even in this conversation is also leadership. And again, if we look at leadership, I believe, Attie, in terms of your presentation and input, in terms of the competences that we look at, and again, understanding the system within our country and within our context, that it's always likely in some areas, starting from the political leadership, the senior management, in terms of that capacity, in terms of even the leadership etiquette, that's where some of our wheels go off. And I believe, and I always advocate to say, That is one area that we really need to pay attention to, because if the top at that level doesn't really, I'll say, take these initiatives to the next level, really contribute and participate in improving their own institutions, because leadership at the core should also be about that. It therefore means we've got a big role to play in influencing that particular space. As we round up, I'll be allowing my panelists just for their last reflections. It's always great to always thank the audience that we have. And again, I know this is the first webinar for this year, and the interaction has not been that much. Safe to say, thanks, Terence, for the questions that you have put through. There's a comment I want to pick on. Specifically, I believe it came from Davis Manzini in terms of ILGM position on the competency assessment test, is that it must be delinked from remuneration. This can be manipulated, and again, it goes back to the issue of the leadership that I'm talking about, because those manipulations with strong leadership, that should be a control on its own to deal with such cases. And again, the current system, all those weaknesses have delivered what we have. Davis goes on to say the manipulation as it is derived from a software which can be manipulated by the service provider and get the basic results. Even the last part of that comment, Davis, because if institutions work with service providers with contractual obligations, definitely, if you are a serious service provider, you will think twice before you get involved in such. It goes back to the leadership, because for a service provider to be able to do such, it has been enabled within the value chain, and it starts with that particular leadership. And thanks for that view in terms of ILGM regarding the topic itself. Let me take you, Attie, in terms of your closing remarks, and I'll just also see if there are any other comments that I'll touch on. Over to you, Attie.
Thank you so much, Zolani. Just in closing, thank you to all the parties involved for the opportunity to talk about something that's very close to our heart, and that is making local government successful. And unfortunately, it starts with leadership. It starts with professionalization. And I want to end off with saying what I said in the beginning, and say the next 5 years is going to be tough, but it's going to be critical, because if we don't have a professional leadership, our reforms and whatever we try to do will fail. So it's not going to be easy. There's a lot of work to be done, not only from an institutionalization perspective, but also from an ethical perspective. You know, the database that you spoke about of making sure that we don't employ unethical people, from making sure that we as all the partners, whether it is training institutions, whether it is the regularity component, or just us as practitioners, we need to have close partnerships to making sure that we align whatever we do to make sure that we achieve one goal, and that is to have a professional local government at the end of the day. And it starts with the individuals, and it starts from the top. It starts with councillors. SALGA, through their processes, needs to make sure that we get accredited councillors and that they're properly trained, that they understand their role, so that they can fulfill the governance role that they need to fulfill. Exactly the same with senior management. Senior management needs to understand how to be leaders and not managers. Okay, and I think that's a big shift, and that is where the change management, and it's also one of the comments that came through, that is where the change management on local level is so important, that it's fully aligned with what we want to achieve on a national basis. Thanks again for the opportunity.
And we hope we'll have you again in future. Thanks for making time, Attie. Trevor, as you are also sponsoring your closing remarks, and the very same comment that you've posted, unfortunately, to just the host and panelists. I just want to read it specifically, the latter part of it, because it touches exactly on the issues of change management, which Attie has touched on, which is one of the areas broadly within the sector. We talk about change management, but when it comes to the intricacies of ensuring that we give it life, I think we still have a problem there. But as I'm saying, as we are closing, just also touch briefly on that topic as well. Over to you.
I think the change management issue and the local level issue is an important one. Now, from that perspective, I think our collaboration, and even as an organization, we have representation in each province. So we've got proper IMSA branches over all the provinces. And these branches operate also from regions. Now, one of the things that we've done, especially around professionalization, especially around the MSR, is to collaborate with municipalities at a local level. And at the same time, when we are collaborating at a local level, we have also given a very, very clear mandate to leadership on the ground to preach the same message, to talk about the same issues, to align to the same issues around professionalization. Fortunately, we are an institute with human resource practitioners, and understanding that professionalization is about accountability. We have a great group of people that are driving leadership. We've got municipalities in various provinces. We've got leaders in those provinces. And I think one of the things that Attie alluded to was that it's about leadership. It's about people taking accountability. It's about people aligning to a common vision. We are blessed in the Institute because we have people who have a vested interest and a commitment to making professionalization happen. I think also, Zolani, the people that we have in the different provinces have been engaging municipalities at a local level on matters that need greater impact, matters that need clarity. And we've used the municipal staff regulations, we've used performance management, we've used Ignite advisory services to attract people to the forums that we are having so that we can engage them on matters around what we are doing. So I think from an information process and the way we are trying to disseminate information is through our lower level structures and to what we have in IMSA. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think come November 2026, we are going to be entering probably a new era because it's elections, local government elections. And I think the timing is right to preach a particular or create a particular narrative. The narrative that we are creating around that is that councillors should have some level of accreditation. And therefore, we are mooting for a minimum level of competency, not as a qualifier, because remember, politicians are elected, but we are mooting for it from the perspective of, we would like you to understand your agendas better. We would like you to understand what your mandate is. We would like you to understand the legislation. And therefore, we are putting in place, or we've made a proposal around, should there not be a minimum competency development program for new councillors coming into local government? I think that's a matter of discussion as well. But I want to close up now, Zolani. Thank you very, very much to you. Thank you very, very much to Dan. And it was absolutely awesome to listen to my colleagues on the panels. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Greatly appreciate it.
And beyond that, thanks to IMSA for really coming on board in supporting our webinar series. We are grateful for that. And again, if we look at our theme for this year, Conversations for Impact, and that's what we need to do, aligning, as you are saying, Trevor, with the major developments. You are mentioning elections. We know the work that is evolving around the white paper, which will also incorporate some of these conversations and discussions that we are having. But that calls, as I've indicated earlier, all of us, not only the panelists, from the audience, ordinary citizens, to really get involved in ensuring that we improve our local government. Prof, your closing shot and closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Zolani. I think for me, continuous learning is important. Universities and schools such as the School of Public Leadership are there to ensure that we partner with local government, we partner with like-minded institutions in ensuring that we are able to provide continuous learning to our practitioners. But most importantly, we ensure that these interventions are accredited interventions, are interventions that will help them to articulate to the national qualifications framework qualifications. So we'll move them from not having those to actually having those, and that would lead to a better professional local government. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here once again. Enjoyed listening to the other panelists and the input they make. Appreciate the time that you've given us. Thank you.
And we appreciate you, Prof. As I've said earlier, you've been with us for some time, and we still look forward in seeing you. As I've indicated, we've got a busy year with various topics, which we believe people like you will have meaningful contributions as we try to get to the local government that we reimagine. But beyond that, it must be the local government that functions for the citizens of South Africa. Thanks a lot. Your closing remarks, Evans?
Thank you. Thank you, Zolani. Thank you to the organizers who worked with you, as well as the fellow panelists for the opportunity to interact with you. For me, in closing, is to say, like Professor Ndevu just said, let's commit to continuous learning. It's the singular, actually, anti-fragility weapon that you will ever have. So continuous learning, like we did today, is really very important. Still back to what you said earlier, Zolani, about partnerships. The organizations here, they sponsor CIGFARO, IMSA, and the others. API, we are bringing the whole continent to Johannesburg from 23rd to 27th March. I'm just thinking right now and wondering, how do we get the voice of the municipalities? I'll check with Zolani to see how we can squeeze the municipalities in one of the panels, so that this conversation on public sector finance management, as well as capacity building and professionalization, can have the voice of the municipalities actually heard by the delegates present. So I look forward to continuous partnership and collaboration with you, and may you all be blessed. Thank you so much, Zolani.
That's much appreciated, Evans. And again, that supports the idea and the notion that we cannot solve the problems alone. And again, as you are proposing, it's something that we'll look at if indeed there is a scope to host even one municipality to be part and parcel of the conversations in the PFM conference. Thanks a lot for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come closer to the end of our webinar today. Let me first again appreciate the opening we received from Dr. Ngcobo, whom unfortunately had to leave at some point due to some other commitments linking to the work that we do within the public service itself. But Alina, also thanks for the presentation. Indeed, I believe with audience and other professionals taking the membership, it then also broadens this professionalization conversation, but also ensuring that we indeed contribute through professionalism in the work that we do. And to all the panelists, we are grateful, both as the Municipal Edge and the Future Cities Africa, but beyond thanking everyone, Dan and the team from Fisher Cities Africa. And again, you know and see, and maybe you might have picked from this conversation that Fisher Cities Africa has a bigger role, not only within the continent, the country, but throughout the continent. And I'm also aware of the work that you continue to do in advancing and improving the continent itself. And of course, our sponsors, Business Engineering, we will not be able to really traverse this road without your support. We will always be forever be grateful and supporters. CIGFARO, you've been with us as indicated, the South African Local Government Association, the SALGA, the Center for Municipal Asset Management. I've seen you, Mr. Nolte. We are grateful for the support and collaborations that we enjoy through the partnership that we have with you. And of course, as I've indicated, IMSA and ILGM, the Institute for Local Government Managers, who also have joined us from this year in pushing this agenda, in ensuring that we make our municipalities a better institutions that then serve the people of South Africa. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, be on the lookout of our next webinars. We have got some scheduled in the next month. Be in the lookout so that you also join us in those webinars, as they will be focusing on areas beyond, for an example, the local government conversations. We will be having a 4-webinar series on the local government white paper. We will be having a 4-webinar series on the municipal standard charts of account. And we can't have those conversations without you. On that note, it's a wrap from my side. Until we meet again in the next webinar, enjoy what's left of today and goodbye.